live from Pahrump, back in Pahrump. This is Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. I'm a washed-up ex-motorcycle racer, just recently retired. My name is Jimmy Lewis. I'm sitting here with a young, up-and-coming motorcycle racer named Logan Tyler, and he is going to run this show in order to give me a chance to... You have to say something, and then I can have a sip of beer.
Oh.
He is pretty cute, though, if he just smiles and sits around. So, anyways, this is Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. We answer your motorcycle and motorcycle product-related questions. Gabe is here with us tonight, and it's kind of strange because we have not had yet a technical glitch that we know of.
Say that now.
Don't say it now because stuff could be happening. But thanks for everybody for joining. Got a good group out there. Wow, 35 people.
Whew.
That's pretty good for just 2 minutes into gibbering and jabbering. I know that I got a list of questions like I usually do, and I know everybody wants me to shut up, Jimmy, and quit talking about yourself, especially Logan. Right?
No.
Okay, because you may or may not know that I was out at the King of the Hammers event, and I competed in King of the Motos, which was a race that I envisioned a long time ago, like pretty much the day after I got canned from Dirt Rider. And it was the race I always wanted to race. So when I had the opportunity to race it, I did. And this is my first chance, thanks to Justin Lineweber. I can't ever pronounce his name. I actually have a hard time with most names. But for bringing that thing back, good on you. I enjoyed your pain all weekend. So, but I finally got a chance to ride my race, and I was super stoked. But first, let's give it up to the sponsors that help me out, help me do this. Kate's Real Food. If I would have eaten more Kate's bars during the race, I wouldn't probably have gotten as many cramps as I did. That and drank more of that stuff as opposed to the other stuff that I'm drinking, like in my training program. So that's a big deal. DDC Sprockets. I would have had DDC Sprockets on my bike, but we didn't have the right ones at the right time. And I'm one of the wheels that I had, not the ones I raced with, but one of the wheels I had might have had one on it, my spare wheel, maybe because I switched to my qualifying wheel. I'll talk about that later. And then what are my climb? I wore climb gear. I pretty much always wear climb gear when it's up to me and I'm just going out riding. Logan, what do you think climb gear?
It's cool.
It's cool. What do you wear?
Whatever my parents buy me.
Right. Well, you got to get Dad to get you some of that climb gear because then you can be cool like Jimmy. And he's just shaking his head going, dude, old dudes wear climb gear. You know what? Because we're smart and we're wise and we're comfortable and we want the best comfortable stuff out there. That's why when you're shivering, that's why I'm not shivering, because I got climb gear on. I got this technical layer underneath. And like when you fall over and you get a bruise, and you're like, and I fall over and I don't get a bruise, I'm wearing one of these. This is this Arsenal tactical stuff, or the Arsenal under layer. I will talk about that. I got to get the name right, though. George will do the research for me. And I got to thank my other sponsor, who's not up on the thing, but he is kind of up on the thing, is George. You're all famous with George, spelled Jorge. Actually, it's the other way around. No, it is Jorge. George, I'm not really sure how this worked out, but he sponsored me for King of the Motos. And I think it was a dare in the beginning. You won't go race this. So he dangled his brand new KTM 300 in front of me. And I know it was mostly because he knows I can get like some free stuff for the bike. And maybe I would put it on there and make his bike better. And when he started seeing pipes pile up and then some clutch parts pile up, and, I think he was like, oh, if I give Jimmy this bike, he'll put all that stuff on it. You ought to see that pipe now. But George hooked me up for the race with the bike. Probably not a very good idea, but the after picture that's floating around up on the screen behind me every once in a while shows that bike looks pretty brand new. It isn't that bad. You could, in all honesty, switch the pipe back out, and the chain guide. Chirby's helped me out with the plastic for the bike and the chain guide. I think other than that, there really weren't. I didn't crash. I mean, I crashed. Well, one thing I'll call a crash. I was only going like 2 miles an hour, but one time I inadvertently set the bike down. So not a bad day. So that's it. If you guys want me to talk about the King of the Motos more, I don't. Jameson says we were both cramping up like crazy. I haven't got to my cramping stories yet. Did you come on to me when I was laying upside down with my legs elevated? Were you one of those guys? I had a good time out there. I really had a super fun time, and I realized exactly why I don't want to race anymore. It's painful. So let's see. I think what I'm going to do is kind of go through some of the questions that we have. A lot of the questions are from last week's show, some from our YouTube videos. And if you're wondering, if you've stumbled across this live Facebook feed, you're watching it right now on YouTube where we post it up. You've come across Dirt Bike Test for some strange reason, and you're watching it there. And it's not yet a podcast because, actually, we do kind of have some sponsor support now. Do you know about this, Gabe? A little bit. You know what I'm going to talk about right now? Did you see what's right here? Here, Logan, what's right there? Reach for
$80.
It's 80?
Yeah.
That's it. I thought it was 100.
No, it's 4.
Do you know about that, Gabe?
No.
No. So the last time we did a show here, I'm gonna grab it here. You grab it and count it. I thought there was $100 there, but if there's 80, someone walked by.
No, it's 100.
It's 100. Good. So I saw Taco Mike. So this is Mike Spurgeon, who you might be familiar with. Taco Mike comes in and co-hosts with us every once in a while. We were talking about different ways of supporting this, keeping this going, and he reached into his wallet and threw down $100 and said, "Here, I'm going to get this thing started." So that's your seed money to start getting these back up in podcasts. And I actually did some work on my side. It's really strange, like me working. But I went and talked to some of my buddies that work out at King of the Hammers, and they hooked me up with some different music options so we can make an intro. And we're still working on a rap song, me and Logan. We've been talking about our collab on some raps about this show. You know about this?
A little.
A little. So we're going to get something put together, and we're going to turn this into a real podcast, not just something that goes up on Facebook and YouTube and wherever. We'll get it back up there for all the people that are wondering when that's going to happen, because evidently listening to it on YouTube in your car takes too much data and is too expensive. So anyways, that's a little bit on the business end of what we're trying to do here. I sent out some proposals over the course of the last couple of weeks to other potential sponsors that are interested in keeping us afloat here. And since I was out racing, of course, I didn't respond to them, and I'll try to fix that next week. But the good thing is I don't want to go riding right now. At least extreme enduro. I'm kind of done. It's a little dusty out here. We need some of the rain. So, yeah, I have a school this weekend. The other thing that supports me is Jimmy Lewis Off-Road Training. If you're not familiar with that, you should be. And you can ask questions about that later. So let's see. Can you explain who Texas Jesus is? I wear cool jeans from Costco. I don't know what those two things have in common, but Texas Jesus was my co-pilot. You know how Jesus is your co-pilot? Well, Texas Jesus was my co-pilot last year when I drove a Legends car in the King of the Hammers Everyman Challenge race. He's a good friend of mine, a good fabricator, a really good navigator. You couldn't have a more mellow dude sitting next to you in a car while you're doing crazy stuff, and he's telling you how to do it properly. I learned how to rock crawl with him. Yeah, that's who Texas Jesus is. Janie's watching. Wow, Janie. Must be slow down at Ramiro's since I'm not down there. But this is show 48, and we want to do 50 from Ramiro's. I really want to do it. I've got a really long cable that I can bring down there to plug in, and hopefully we can get our thing. Maybe we'll do a little test something because I want the 50th show to go really good. Let's see. But is Texas Jesus running for mayor? He was the mayor of Hammertown, and I think he still may be. We're not really sure about that. So, okay. There are some King of the Motos questions popping up on the thing. Hey, Chris Valdez. Wow, there's another knucklehead from the past. Remember Chris Valdez, Mojave Bob? Remember him?
I'm trying.
Yeah, don't hurt your brain. So he was one of those guys who was out at our Thanksgiving trail rides back in the day.
Oh.
Yeah, usually if there was something bad going on, he was intimately involved. Yeah. So, okay, on to the questions. Did you get a chance to pre-read these?
No.
Okay, so if we want to if somebody really wants to call in, write about it in the chat room. We can hook you up with a call in. We got about $8 left in that account, and we haven't used it for a few months. So that's another area where we need some sponsorship. It could be the call-in line sponsored tonight. It's a call-in line sponsored by Taco Mike. So Taco Moto, he is not here because he had family obligations, which I totally respect. And a couple other things. So up on Dirt Bike Test, and believe it or not, we did some fixing on Dirt Bike Test today because it was broken. I would like to use that as an excuse on why there hasn't been a whole lot of new content up there. But we just weren't putting it up there. But the broken thing made it easy excuse for Trevor to say, I can't put my Pure Citrus test up there. And when he sent me the link that showed the site was broken, and it was Pure Citrus, I thought we'd been hacked and somebody was trying to put an ad up there or something. But no, Trevor has a secret with Pure Citrus up there. He just posted it right now. So go to dirtbiketest.com and check that out. It's the main story on the site right now. And you can even support us by clicking through the link at the bottom of that test, and it goes through Amazon, and then you give us a little portion of, it's an affiliate program. So that's one of the ways. And on any of our Fresh Dirt stories, you'll see that Amazon link at the bottom. If you need to buy something, think about us. Go to our site, click through the Amazon link, and we'll get a couple nickels. And that way, what are we paying for around here? More money for the phone so we can pay the phone bill? It's pretty much. So that's how it works. Let's see, what else is up there? Yeah. And so on our not last show, but the show before that, we were actually begging for money. And Mitch Solis is a fan of the show. And I haven't gone to PayPal yet, but I started getting notifications through my Dirt Bike Test email that Mitch Solis sent us money because he wants to keep us going here. Bob just comes here and eats our food. Jimmy brings Logan here, so that's his debt of gratitude. Every once in a while, Bob buys tacos, and Gabe works his ass off for free, and I don't care. So that's where we're at here. But hey, Mitch, thanks a bunch. We sat around after that last show and had a big discussion about how we can kind of keep this thing going and what makes it work and what doesn't. And it's a different world out there now, with whether you have sponsors, because people think that if you have a sponsor or a partner that it's going to change the way, the dynamic that you speak about that company or any companies in general. And if you followed me, since I very first started as a quote journalist, I've been pretty straightforward and honest about stuff. Even on this show, when I talk about something, I have companies that help me with my riding school. Kenda, for instance, I know we talk about them all the time. Big fan of Scott's products, Scott's steering stabilizers. Hey, Logan, why don't you talk for a second real quick?
He likes Scott's stabilizers.
That was perfect. Couple other companies, but these are companies that anti-gravity I'm sorry, I messed up. Anti-gravity used to help me with batteries, and now it's Shoari. But both of those are good batteries. DDC helps me with sprockets. I used to run dirt tricks for a long time, so I mean, I'll just be absolutely clear with you about what I've used, what I do use, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to tell you that something else is just as good, maybe better. I can talk about the positives and negatives of different things because I kind of treat this whole medium, this position I've been put in, is like I'm always looking for some dude that's honest, that's trying to be honest with me when I'm asking questions about whether it's snowboards or skateboards or surfboards or UTVs. Oh, man, I'm a novice at UTV. You got to see mine right now. All wheels go in 4 different directions. Yeah, from rock crawling. I did. I'm still learning. But, you're always looking for that kind of trusted source of information. That's what we want to be here. If you want to get on board as a sponsor, I'm not a big fan of. I've never been a big fan of like that whole Patreon that GoFundMe sort of mentality. So it's new to me, but we're looking at different ways to do this. So. But Mitch, thanks a lot. I'm probably going to refund your money, in all honesty, or I'm going to send you a damn T-shirt. Either way, I'll take your money and send you some T-shirts. But I appreciate that. I mean, that was huge. It does change the way I think about stuff. So super stoked for all you guys. And you got something to say, Logan? What do you got?
Nothing.
You sure?
Well, there's a pretty big question in the Facebook chat room.
Okay, what is it?
It's suspension question. I don't know how to pronounce your name, so.
It's Dimitri Anzazello.
Suspension question.
Sounds good to me.
In road racing and modern mountain bikes, fork spring preload is usually adjustable, and people set that up just like shock preload to get race/bike sag where it needs to be. Why is it that for dirt bike people are very specific about rear race sag and nobody talks about fork sag, and it isn't even adjustable on most suspensions?
Man, Dimitri, that's an excellent question. Yeah, I'm actually kind of processing that because on a lot of the WP suspension, the current stuff, the fork preload is adjustable. Yeah. And why are we more concerned with the rear? And I'm having road raced and knowing how critical it is in road racing. I think a lot of time on the road race bike is spent really trusting what the front end is going to do in a way that, because the traction, you have really good traction, and it's so consistent that you really ride the front wheel quite a bit on the road race bike, and the fork travel isn't as much as like on the dirt bikes. The dirt bike's always very active in moving around, where the road race bike, when you get settled onto the brakes, it's a pretty consistent position, and at that point the preload would probably affect like where it is. Everything affects where it is, but so I think it's probably just more critical on those bikes. I'm guessing that I mean, I adjust it more for feel, like what I feel through the handlebars. What the fork preload is, and maybe it's just that, sometimes it feels a little mushy, and a lot of times I'll use air pressure to do that. Negative air pressure mostly. If I want to take out some bump compliance, I want it to feel softer a little bit, but sometimes I'll also kind of jack up the spring preload a little bit. And we used to use, I remember on my old YZ125s, I was running longer preload spacers on the forks back in the day. That was just something that we seemed like we did because the spring rate was right. It just, the bike, kind of, got mushy in the front. So, but the rear, for sure, I think the dirt bike, you're just riding on the rear wheel quite a bit more, and the rear determines the attitude of the bike more. Does that make sense to the peanut gallery and the everybody? Bob shaking his head. No, he's not even shaking his head. He's just throwing his hands up in the air.
You can talk about how you get negative pressure.
How I get negative pressure in my forks. Negative pressure in the forks. Well, the easiest way to do it is to buy like the little bleeder screws. And I know a couple of really good companies that I wouldn't mention their names, especially if they're sponsors of this show, of these little bleeders things that you just push a button and you bleed. So usually they say to, zero out your air pressure in your forks. It's a good tip for everybody, by the way. So if you're thinking so usually you zero out your air pressure with your bike on the stand, no weight on the wheel. But if you have let's just say your bike just sitting with just its weight on there and you zero out the pressure then, that's a little bit different because now they're collapsed a little bit more. So that puts a negative pressure if you put it back up on the stand. Or there's even sometimes when it's like a little bit too much, I'll actually push down on the fork while I'm pushing down on the button. And then just before it rises up, I let go of the button. So I'm actually putting quite a bit of negative pressure inside of the fork. You get me there, Logan?
Yeah.
You've seen me do this before, haven't you?
No.
You haven't seen me do this?
No.
When I'm out jacking around with my own bike, trying to make it better. When I'm mad at my own bike. Usually when the forks don't work well, the first thing I do is bleed the air out of the forks because a lot of times they just build pressure from sitting around, the temperature changes, whatever. And I don't like a fork with a lot of air pressure in it unless it's an air fork. And then I really like them. And that's why I'm weird, because I like air forks and nobody else does. But anyhow, so that's that. I hopefully answered. Did I answer your question there, Dimitri? Let me know. See if we can handle that. Let's see. Chris Real says I am real. Chris Real says look, you got George, pulling a Jorge on me, and you got Real pulling a Real on. You got to have phonetic spellings all the time. I'm not sure. What's our next question here? Why don't we run through these questions here? We'll start with that one right there. It's a statement, isn't it? No, it is a statement.
Doran Windle. EKG FMF exhaust change the sprockets. It's a different bike.
And Darren is talking about our CRF 250 Rally bike that we that actually was tested by Mark Kapeloff. Speaking of names that are hard to pronounce. And yes, you're exactly right. Those bikes respond well to all those. So EJK is a fuel tuner. So he's talking about fuel tuner, exhaust, and then gearing, doing some gearing changes, and it's a totally different bike. It's a totally different bike. I mean, you can get probably, I would say you can get a third more power out, maybe even more, by doing something as simple as that. And knowing how to do it properly, and there's tons of stuff on the internet to tell you how to do it properly, and there's a lot of ways to tell you how to screw it up. So, but yeah, that is a totally different bike. So, Darren, thanks for commenting on that. And what is John asking?
John Quest. Please, Honda, make another 350 again. That would be perfect. 250 too small, 450 too big.
I would think KTM has answered that question. As Bob sits there and smiles as the owner of a KTM 350. when Honda made that 350, so they're talking about the XR 350, and that was a little bit before my time being involved in any testing or development or something. I don't know exactly why that was, because they had the XR 250, the XR 350, and the XR 500. Wait a minute, KTM copied Honda? Oh my goodness, I just revealed some really crazy information, and they were so far ahead of themselves, and then they quit doing it. But then Honda made the XR 400. That's where the XR 350 went to XR 400, because at the time, and I remember having discussions about this with people that were, test riders and people that were in marketing and R&D and research. Everybody had decided that the perfect displacement for a two-stroke for, trail riding and, off-roading was 200 cc's, and the perfect size for a four-stroke was 400 cc's, like just to make the ideal bike. And this was kind of when the competition four-strokes were coming on and all different kinds of things. So I think if Honda made a 350 four-stroke, it could be awesome if they made it as a, quote, race bike. But the problem is now with an engine at Honda has to serve multiple purposes. It has to span a large range of duty. So, and they're looking at what KTM has done by having kind of a very similar motor, work a big cycle. So you look at let's just say the KTM 450. That's kind of the same motor that's now in the KTM 500 EXC, and it's in the 450 XC and the 450 XCW and lots of different bikes like that. So, Honda's doing the same thing with their CR450L, and then they have their 250 that's doing it in 250 RX, 250R. They don't have a 250L now, but then they have, a whole different motor for that. But it's tricky. But again, to get that kind of power out of an emissions compliant 350 is tough. So, yeah, I think what you're looking for is you can take that too. So that was posted on our CRF 250 rally post. And you could take that bike, and there's different companies that make, like LA Sleeve, for instance, makes a big bore kit for that bike. And then you can turn it into anything from a 280, up to something bigger. I think all of a sudden you have to start stroking it. Maybe not the best idea for durability in the long run, but some of those kits work really well, and you can build the bike that you need. So if you haven't ridden a new 250, you probably should, because sometimes people have these impressions in their mind of what, they're thinking about something that's 10 or 15 years ago, and the new 250s are quite a bit better than they were just not too long ago. Okay, what's our next one?
Prince. This was a good episode between the two of you guys. There's a lot of good common sense advice backed by years of riding / racing / testing. Mike, I've added the taco tour to my bucket list. Jimmy, I'll buy a T-shirt soon.
Oh yeah, you can buy T-shirts from us. That'll not really help support us all that much, but you'll be wearing a dirt bike test T-shirt, unlike the one that Logan is wearing, which is a special reserve. I've seen people try to steal those from us now. So that's for the core staff of Dirt Bike Test, which is pretty thin. Unless you want to be an intern here, you can earn one of those, right, Logan?
Yes.
Yes. And I think which episode he was talking about, I don't know if it was the Taco Mike episode or with George on, but yeah, we do have experience. We try to, I hate talking to racers. And racists like me, like, wait, we're going to talk about King of the Motos later, right?
Maybe.
So no, I like talking to racers, but I always try to drive them down more of a technical line, talk about products and stuff. But yeah, thanks for that, Ed Pierce. Thanks for the question. Liberty Tree says,
let's get Victor on the show.
I want to get Victor on the show, but it seems like me and Victor can't hook up, because Victor tried to come and find me out at King of the Hammers, and I saw pictures of him. You got sending an XR400, one of his buddies sending an XR400 up back door. Yeah, they watched Cody Webb go up it, and then they took their XR400s out there and tried to do it. So just follow Victor on Facebook, yeah, you can watch that too. I think he put it on the XR400 page. There's an XR400 page on Facebook too, which I'm supposed to be in charge of, but I just let it go. It's whatever happens. And speaking of Victor, he asked a question, did you hear about the CARB sending letters to KTM owners to volunteer testing the bikes for emissions? Yes, I've heard about that. And if Chris Reel is listening, he can probably speak to that better than anybody. But that is something that they do. I think they do that with all different kinds of vehicles. And the letters that I saw, they were offering $5,000 to use their bike for a little while. Bob's eyes just lit up, and now he's wishing he lived in California again. And I think that it depends on what kind of tests they do on it. I think most of it is, I don't know. I don't know what kind of test it is. Probably evaporative stuff. They put it in the oven, and they see if it leaks. Who knows? And Victor couldn't find me at the Hammers because he got hammered at the Hammers. Imagine that. Okay. Greg Smith.
You wouldn't.
Oh, hey, wait. I want to read this one.
Okay.
Yeah, Guy Smith, and this was on my Tour of Idaho video. I'm going to read this, and I'm not going to mess this up. I'm going to read it exactly the way he wrote it, because you won't to break down or breaks some bones out there and leave those trees alone. Why don't you read that out loud again? Say
Go
that.
back to second grade.
Wow, Logan. Read that out loud again.
You wouldn't want to break down.
Wait, no. You're paraphrasing. Read it word for word.
You wouldn't want to break down or break some bones out there and leave those trees alone.
He wrote that on my Tour of Idaho video. Yeah, I wouldn't want to break down. If I won't want to break down, I didn't break down, right?
If you took on a tree, the tree would always win.
Yeah, trees usually win. I think he was, I think he was mad because I had a good time and he probably had to hike someplace and got upset that I was riding on legal OHV trails on my street legal, dual sport bike, and decided he was going to throw a mean comment at me. And Guy, lighten up and have a good day and learn how to spell, you second grader. Okay. What did Cinco say?
Yeah, man, I wasn't here for the free content. I'll go somewhere else to pay. SMH.
I had to look that up. It stands for shake my head. He wasn't here. I wasn't here for free content. I'll go somewhere else to pay. Yeah, you're getting what you're paid for. Hey, wait, you took the time to comment. Is that a compliment or a slam? I don't even know.
I think it's sarcasm.
It's sarcasm?
I think.
Okay.
Hard to say.
When he sends like $40 on whatever app that Victor just sent me money through Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need a bank. Now I need to make a Facebook bank account. I don't want to fill out the tax forms, man. Just slide me cash. Bring me that bottle of tequila. Actually, you do need to come in. You do need to come in for to be a live guest on this show. Actually, okay. So the reason I'm wearing a Rottweiler T-shirt right now, Rottweiler, a friend of mine and a partner with me in my schools, helps me out with stuff on my adventure bikes. Just to be clear, I've done a live show from there. And I'm wearing it because I was thinking I was going to go back and butter Chris up for, hey, we'll go do a live show at Rottweiler again. But now I want to go to Victor's. I want to bring my S show to Victor's place. We'll eat popsicles, have some tequila, maybe next week. Next question.
Paul.
Oh, say that name. I know that name. Say that name.
Throkill.
Throkill. It's actually Throkill. I know this. So Paul, say it again.
Throkill.
Right. Okay. Asks.
Jimmy, you said you weren't running a bunch of sag on that 300, how far will you go before you feel that it would really jack the handling?
So Paul's asking about my KTM 300 setup. George is a little heftier than me, and he had already resprung the 300, which is fine for me riding around out in the desert here. But I did a couple little tests, and I should kind of talk about how I tested and set up the bike. I have that on my notes. But we'll talk. Paul, I'm going to get to that question. I'm going to answer that. And rolling back over to the Chris Reel. Thanks for picking on me. I'm actually going to try to make a point of not calling you Real again, because like real. He's going to give you the real answer. Chris is going to give you the real answer. The agencies do testing on in-use vehicles. A normal test is looking at all the modifications, then doing a dyno rolling road test about an hour, and then an evaporative test in a shed, probably about 2 hours of running time. And no, they don't pay you $5,000 to use your bike. There's from somebody that knows. But the letter that I saw, the official letter that I saw, actually said that they were going to pay $5,000. But who knows? I didn't get one, but I saw somebody else's. And Muriel Parker, that's Chris's wife, says we need to do a Tech Talk Taco Tuesday at the shop again. Tequila, chips, and salsa. Maybe we could do that and bring Victor in as a guest, because you guys could all speak Spanish. Because Victor's what's that word? It starts with a B. No, don't say it. Yeah, don't say it. We good with all the?
Yeah.
Another page. Back on that page. Pull that thing out. What's that?
Greg Rossell, will you explain clicker adjustment, mostly on rebound, as in what's way to turn the clicker to achieve the wheel rebound being slowed down or sped up? 18 KTM 300 EXC-W.
So, Greg, good question. So, the clicker, and this goes for any clicker, the reason they're on there is to be able to make adjustments. For the most part, generally, in like 95% of the bikes I've ridden, when you turn the clicker in, screw it in like you're tightening a screw, you are restricting the flow. And when you unscrew the clicker, open this clicker up, you're opening up the flow. You're allowing more flow. So the more you screw it in, the slower, whether it's compression or rebound, so slower or stiffer. And when you open it up, it's freer, more loose is the kind of terminology for that. So specifically on that bike, for sure, what I'm saying is correct. And most of the time the KTMs come set in I think it's like 14, because I think it's 28 on those bikes. I know because I just, on the 19 that I had, I was playing with the adjustments to get it perfect for me. And it was both compression and rebound were set at 14, and then the high-speed compression is not necessarily a click, it's just the amount of turns that you can get out of it. And generally they're set around standard in the 1.5 to 2 range, and sometimes they go to 3 when they're wide open, maybe a little bit more. But so when you screw it in, you tighten it up, that's making the rebound slower. In other words, the shock extends slower after it's compressed. It comes down slower, so you're slowing the rebound. And that sensation is, if the bike feels maybe too springy, or it feels like it's kicking you, and it's really rare that a properly working shock anymore feels springy, unless you're Logan's weight and you're riding with stock springs on a 125. Yes. So, but if you're the right weight and everything like that, it's really where what you mostly notice it on, and it is a springy feel, but it just feels like the bike is it kind of the rear end feels like it's coming off the ground too much. You know, that maybe the seat's bumping you in the butt a little bit too much. That would be too fast of a rebound, and that would be a reason for, kind of screwing it in and slowing it down. And then the question is like, well, when does it get bad? And what happens when you start slowing the rebound down is you want it to extend out as much as possible, as quickly as possible, without giving that springy feel. But if you start slowing it down too much, it doesn't extend, and then it keeps the shock or the forks in a stiffer part of the stroke where it's more compressed, and it actually makes the bike act stiffer. So by slowing the rebound down, you actually sometimes can it'll stiffen up the suspension, or you can get it. It's called packing. So the shock doesn't rebound out enough. So you imagine that when it the tire or whatever wants to follow the rear ground, the shock wants to extend back out, and it can't extend because the dampening is slowing it down. And then when the next time it hits the next bump, it's in a stiffer spot, and it kind of compresses. So that's what that knob does. And then it's a matter of just kind of finding a happy spot with it. So I always say play with the range. Feel the go ahead and go 3 or 4 clicks and see if you notice it. 5 or 6 clicks, see if you notice it. And if you don't, that could be you, or it could be just the bike in general. It's not that sensitive. Some people are sensitive to 1 or 2 clicks, and they really do notice that kind of stuff. And then from there, kind of fine tune it. But don't be afraid to play with that. Do kind of a repeatable test. Just ride through one section, make a change, ride back through that section, see if you notice it. Try a little bit different, and then when you come to something you're happy, then just go ride it around and see if you notice it, and then you'll know what effect that has on your bike. Is that how you do it, Logan?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, recently.
Recently. You just got your suspension revalved. Why?
Because it was too stiff from factory.
Right. Because you weigh half of what you're supposed to.
Yes.
Right. And you haven't tested it yet?
No.
But the guy you sent it to sent it back and said it's going to be perfect.
Sure.
It's good. No, that's the way a suspension tuner is supposed to do it. So, what's our next question? Oh, you got a question on that list right there? Or are you texting your sister? She's telling you to talk more?
No. Victor asked me if I was doing a TikTok video.
A tech talk video?
TikTok.
TikTok?
Yes.
Oh, you running TikTok over there?
No.
No, is that what all the kids are doing?
Yes.
Okay, but you don't.
Nope.
Okay, Greg also asks, can I top off the coolant on my 2018 KTM and Husqvarna TE150 with G40? Okay, what's G40?
Yeah.
You don't know? Okay, that's where you get on the thing and search it. I know George is searching it right now, and someone else. We'll find out what G40 is. The G40 says it is compatible with the same Volkswagen BMW coolant as a factory. Motor X says it's compatible with us. Maybe it's a Motor X stuff. By the way,
Xerox.
I'm the guy that bought 3 T-shirts. Oh, right on, Greg. You're that's why you're getting your question answered second to last. So, you can top off. Well, I've always been told not really to mix the colors of coolant. Okay, don't mix the colors of coolant. Like pink should be pink and green should be green. I don't know exactly why. Chris Reel could tell us, and I need to get him back in here one of these days. And we'll put that down on the notes. Yes, Bob.
Sometimes with the different colors, they'll turn to jelly.
The different colors, it turns gel, and that's the issue I've had with when people put weird stuff in their radiators, like what was the stuff that it was you couldn't mix it with anything else, but it had definitely a higher boiling point. There's all different kinds of stuff that people put in radiators. Big fan of water, water and mixed with coolant. I've had success with water wetter, like I've said before. It seems like it drives the boiling temp up. But I wouldn't, whatever your color of your coolant is, like find a similar color coolant or just add water unless you've put like a non-water type coolant into it. And yeah, you can top it off. And it seems like the bikes are pretty good at what I would call self-regulating. Yeah, distilled water is best because then you don't get all that mineral and caking like with our water out here, especially on that stuff. Mix it with like type coolant. Hopefully that one answers your question. What's the last question on our sheet?
Eric Featherston.
Eric Featherston. Yeah, that's an easy one.
Jimmy, I have a new 300 EXCW. No, just an XCW.
Right.
Want to get a starting point for the Recluse from you. I will ride ST.
Single track.
Some Bean Canyon.
Yeah, Bean Canyon in the spring.
And I am a solid intermediate rider.
Okay, so I'm going to answer this question and the other one here about the sag. I'm going to talk about how I set up my bike for King of the Motos. I mean, George's bike. Well, is it bad that I'm calling it my bike now? Is that bad? I should call it my bike because, I put more seat time on it than him. So it's kind of attracted to me, George, by the way. But anyways, so when George challenged me, and by the way, speaking of George, you need to follow George on Instagram. He's Mr. Endo. Yeah, I don't know how to spell it, or is there a way you can link your Instagram account to this thing? He's mixing rum with Coke Zero. That's what George was doing. That's why he's not paying attention on the form right now. Post your Instagram account on there so I can read it. It's Mr. Endo. You follow him on Instagram. He had 6 followers before King of the Motos, and it was super successful on his front because I think now he has 10 followers. So he almost doubled his Instagram following with that big sponsorship, and that's really what we're trying to do. Jimmy's trying to do with George is promote his emoji. It's called a memoji, which surprisingly ended up on the shroud graphics. So that was the first thing that I schemed to do when he said he was going to sponsor me, which was a giant pain in the butt because I found out that the 2019 KTM is the same as the 2016 SX, and so getting graphics made for that because the XC and the SX are different than the XCW and blah, blah, blah. So I have a really nice set of shrouds that look almost identical for a 2020, which is probably a really good reason for George to buy me a 2020 to go, profile at the local riding spots. Oh, it'll fit on his bike.
I think so.
Oh, I got a whole set of plastic for you.
Okay.
Like the Troy Lee designs where they have the pink and the blue, the blue, not pink, but blue. Yeah, I got that color too. Because your bike looks pretty good. It's all gray.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like your bike. But anyways, back to it. So I, aside from the looks, and Achirby's really helped me out with getting the plastic situation sorted because I thought it was going to get a little more beat up than that. So I knew that I needed to work on 2 things: balance, and that's all on me, and then traction. And traction has to do with like what tires am I going to use, what am I going to do with the clutch. And so the bike had a Recluse clutch in it. It was the standard, absolutely stock standard setup for the Recluse. And so the first thing I did was started playing around with that. And I kind of was almost ready to take the Recluse out and go back to a standard clutch. But then I started paying attention to the way I was riding when I was out practicing technical trails. And I have this old man style where I actually will kind of like let go of the clutch and like hold the bike with the rear fender and do all this stuff where I'm realizing it's like I've become so attuned to using that clutch in really bad technical situations where, the the bike's in gear, but I'm maneuvering around and holding the throttle so that it doesn't roll backwards down a hill. I'm like, if I pull that thing out, I'm going to have to kind of change my current technical trail riding style. So I started playing around with the springs. The stock setup is all silver springs, I think it is. I wish I knew the colors off the top of my head. Is silver. It's all silver. It's all silver. So I ended up going with all steel springs, which is all the lightest. And I kind of went, I was going to go 3 and 3 silver, 3 steel. And I just went ahead and just, like I said, sometimes make a big change and see how it works. I thought for sure it would stall and it wouldn't, stay running, but it did. And it creeps exactly like I want it to, because I want, when that thing's just idling, I want it to creep, and I had to be very particular with my idle to set it so that the bike wouldn't stall. It would just have just enough to chug. And, if the bike was sitting on a certain amount of incline, that I could just let the bike idle and it wouldn't roll backwards. So I spent a lot of time kind of, playing with that, playing with the free play adjustment, the what do they call their free play gain, clutch free play gain?
Yeah.
What's the playing with that?
Heavier weights.
And it comes with heavier weights, and I made sure there was heavier weights in it. But playing with all that stuff, and it's funny because when I talk to the Recluse techs, I'm like, how come you don't sell them like this? And they're like, well, because you're getting kind of a point where you could, fry the clutch, and maybe it doesn't shift as good under full power, and all these other things when it's set up like that. So that's the way I had it set up. It's a kind of a personal preference, and most people that start, if they try my setup, they end up kind of liking it, because there's it doesn't disengage, it doesn't freewheel when you go downhill, and it's just weird that it creeps. It tries to creep on you. It doesn't totally go into neutral when you come to a complete stop. So it's a little bit different sensation, but it works. And so that's what I spent a lot of time messing around with that, and just little adjustments. And I thought I was going to have to play around with it more, but I got really happy. And then I started playing around with tires, was my next thing. And so I run Kenda tires. Like I always say, Kenda helps me out with the schools, and so I have access to their tires. They have the Ibex, they have the Washougal Sticky, they have the Equilibrium, and they have the Parker DT are the tires of choice for that. I chose to run, I was pretty sure I was going to run Equilibrium. And so I had a Nitro Moose mounted, a soft Nitro Moose mounted in an Equilibrium. I had a soft Nitro Moose mounted in a Parker DT. And then I had an old standard Nitro Moose mounted in another Parker DT that I was practicing with. And it was so old that the tire started coming off the bead a little bit. It was that soft. And so I kind of disqualified that tire. And then I went back and forth, and it was funny because I knew that the prologue was going to be higher speed than a lot of the race was. And so I'm like, I'm going to run the Parker no matter what for there, because I just like that, you can lean it into a turn. The chassis, the carcass of the tire is a little bit stiffer. And so when I put the quote qualifying tire on and I went out and played around in the rocks, I realized it got way better traction in the really loose stuff. And so I ended up opting to race with the Parker DT. And funny thing is, I think Cody Webb actually ran the first 2 laps on a Parker also, because now he's running the Kenda tires on the Sherco. And it was he did it mostly for durability. I actually did it because I felt like I got really good side traction on the knobs. For sure, the Equilibrium stuck a little bit better, but out in the desert, I'm not a big fan of the. I don't feel a huge advantage for the way that I ride with the Ibex for sure, and I haven't spent much time on the Washougal Sticky, so I just went with something I was familiar with. I knew how it worked, and that was it. As far as suspension goes, George had his big springs on his suspension, and I had a 250 EXCF out in the garage, which has the same components. And I said, I'm just going to throw this stuff on here because it's sprung a little bit lighter. At least the rear shock is. I'm not 100% sure about the fork, but I just swapped the components out, and I went out and rode it around, and the bike rode like a lowrider. So, you know, when I sit on your bike and it crushes down like that, it was like that. And if you watch videos of us riding around in those trails, you see a lot of us sitting in the middle to the back of the seat, you know, dangling our feet around like rudders because you're trying to get as much traction as you can on the rear wheel, and you want to just kind of squat down, and a stiffer spring wouldn't do that for me. And so it definitely wasn't the best. It felt like I was riding a bike when I was going across the desert in the hoops. I just felt like the back end was like all kind of pogoey and stuff like that. But the amount of time I spent out there compared to the amount of time I spent, you know, in the rocks, it was like, okay, this is the setup that's going to work for me. And my sag was set at, so it was 30 millimeters of bike static sag, so bike only, so bike on the stand, bike weight only. It was 30 millimeters, but when I sat on it, it was down around 120. So it was pretty stinking low, and so I'm overpowering the spring for that particular bike on that setup. So did it affect the handling? A little bit, but I tended, you know, I noticed when I was going across the desert, I just rode more over the front of the bike, and I wasn't like a pogo on the back. You know, I stood more forward, leaned more forward, and it was fine. It didn't bother me, and it was also because of the moose. It was so soft in the rear. You're getting some, you know, handling issues because of that. Soft suspension, soft handling. So that's onto the sag. What was the other question? It was about the starting point for the Recluse. So I got both of those, right?
Yeah.
So actually, it's funny. Those are the two things I kind of messed with: suspension. And hey, thanks to Harlem from Dirt Nation for getting me those photos that are kind of flashing on the background. He covers all of the works races, and if you follow Dirt Nation on Instagram, you can see cool photos from races. And if you race those, you know who that guy is, right?
No.
He's the guy out shooting all the works races. He probably has photos of you.
Probably.
Yeah. So you should follow him, and that way you can see your photos online. So Harlem got us a thing. And George wants to make you a memoji now. Let's see. How whiny are you guys? Hi, Steve. And how whiny are you guys? Whiny? They're talking about what they're drinking, or are they complaining about something? Let's see. Peggy Nash Kaufman asked, did you already talk about how you deal with a 15-hour oil change interval on your tour of Idaho? Sorry, I missed the beginning. Hey, Peggy. No, I haven't talked about that yet. Somebody asked, they asked about, 15. It's actually a 15-hour oil change. So that's what KTM suggests or something. I'm not sure where the 15-hour oil change thing came up. But so I rode the entire tour of Idaho on the oil that was in it when I started. And it may have actually had a little bit of time on it before I started. And I rode the entire tour of Idaho with the Recluse clutch in my bike. And yeah, for sure I changed it when I got home. And it looked like it needed to be changed, but it wasn't horrible. So I did not change my oil on there, nor did I ever feel the need to. If you're abusive on the clutch, you might want to change your oil sooner than that, but I didn't need to. I never even felt concerned. I have a lot of bikes that keep running for a long time, and I can actually feel mostly in shifting when it's time to change oil. I mean, I notice a difference in the way that the bike shifts. I can also look at the color of the oil in the window. That'll kind of give me an impression. Or I know if I've been hard on the bike, like I've got it really hot for some reason, it's just, check the oil. And when I feel like I've done something bad to the bike, I also do an oil filter. And I look very carefully at the oil filters on a KTM to see if there's any contaminants. anything that would tell me I need to look into this a little further, or there's engine damage going on in place. But yeah, most of these bikes these days are pretty stinking bulletproof when it comes to the oil. And Chris Reel has something for me to test in the KTM I raced. He doesn't want me to change the oil, so I won't say that out loud because I don't want George to know that I'm going to run it even longer. George wants to call in. Okay, can we set the phone call up? Okay, here we go. George, you have $8 to talk, $8 of talking left. That's how we do it here on Dirt Bike Test Tech Talk Taco Thursday. I think I got it set up. I got to call in. I know that, don't I, Gabe?
Yes.
I have to call in. He put it in my favorites. Is it in my favorites?
Search Tech Talk.
Search Tech Talk in my Tech Talk. ECH.
Nothing.
Gabe's calling in too. Tech Talk Taco Tuesday?
It should be Tech Talk call in.
Hey, Logan, you were going to work on your segment. Remember your segment that you were going to do? It's Logan's segment. It's called The Sound of Silence. You're laughing at that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you're supposed to have this thing prepared. What was your question today?
Well, when I was coming in, I was gonna say, "What did you finish?" But you kind of answered that.
Well, I didn't
Before
answer it
show.
live on the show, did I?
No.
Well, so they don't know
Yeah.
how I finished. I won. You like how I answered that?
Yeah.
I won. In my head, I had a victory. I won. Let's see. I think I'm calling it a Tech Talk. Let me see how it works.
You're in.
I'm in. Do I have to do anything else?
As long as your phone's plugged in.
My phone's plugged in. Okay. Is George called in yet?
Yeah.
Oh no. Here it's gonna get good. It sounds like he's been drinking.
Maybe. I don't know.
No, I finished. I think I didn't pay attention to the results, the official results. I think I finished like 29th overall, 13th amateur, and 3rd old dude, which is like I think the class was 45 plus. But what I was most impressed with on myself was I was either 11th or 14th in the prologue, and I did not, in my opinion, have a very good prologue. I think I left 20 seconds out in the course. But since I'm doing my podium speech now, I just want you to know that I had a game plan. I stuck to it. I hit all my marks, and I had a really good race. I'm not kidding. Other than the cramps, so the only problem I had was cramps, and I think I'm going to blame my training regimen on it, especially my hydration program, which, yeah, you're watching it right now. Yeah, bad for you. Okay, are we in?
I can put them in right now.
Okay, I can't see anything on the screen.
Want me to put them in?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll see if he pops up on this thing.
He's in.
He's in. Okay, hold on a second. Let me run it up here. George, can you hear me? You can hear me.
That's really quiet.
It's really quiet. Okay, we got to figure out what we do here.
I don't think it's hooked up.
You don't think it's hooked up? He's plugged
No.
in.
Sounds like it's.
Where do you hear him, on the phone?
I don't know. Speak, George.
Where do you hear me?
Yeah, right there. It's-
Ye-
Your phone.
Yeah, but it's supposed to go through the line.
It was online.
Is he on the line now? Can you hear me, George? Calling, checking.
Yeah, he's in your headphones now.
He's in my headphones. Hey, George, say hi to the fans. We can hear you someplace.
It's still on the phone.
He's still on the phone.
No, it's not.
He's not.
We can't hear it.
I wonder why.
Yeah?
Let's see. You guys can't hear it. You could only hear him when I actually. Let me go to the speaker here. Now try that.
Good. It's good you sort this out before you get, some of the important calls.
I can hear you now, so you must be going through the.
Okay, so are we good?
I sure as heck hope so. I could have just called you on my regular phone and done this. We don't have to go through.
So can your audience hear me?
I'm seeing.
good?
I think we're good. I think it's out there. Well, we'll see. Why don't you check on your?
Okay.
As long as you're not watching yourself on the Facebooks.
Well, I shut it off. I shut off that part of it. So
Good.
Anyway, you caught up. You said, did you tell me you qualified 14th?
I tried to. I was
Well, anyway, yeah, you won't brag about yourself, so I'll do some background. Basically, you wanted to get a good.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Good qualifying position.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely. I did. I know. While you were like busy calling in, I was bragging about myself.
No, I heard some of that. But you said you wanted to qualify good, so of course you wouldn't be behind all the mess and carnage. And you did. You qualified 14 out of what were there? You were like position 180 when you registered. There were like 200 people in the race or something.
Yeah, I think they had a. I think in the race there was 120 or something because it was a split in numbers. But I think they had the most entries they've ever had for that event. So there was probably at least 120 guys.
20. Yeah, so you qualified 14th, and it was pretty cool just standing there watching. If you search around, there's video of that, like that I post or whatever. But you did, all the stuff you preach about in schools. You didn't start out in a big S shape. You're in back off, keeping traction, just hauling ass. It was cool. And then you said you were going to do a trail ride after that when the main event came.
So
you're out there riding.
Yeah, so my plan, all along was, was to not race the race. The plan was, it's so, like, because a race like that bottlenecks up, and I knew when I saw the course, I looked at it and said, okay, we're going to go up around Backdoor, and then we're going straight up this trail called Resolution, which has two big bottlenecks in it, and I knew if I was... it was one of two things. I was going to be able to go up there with pros, and then I would be the bottleneck, and I just have to work my way up, or I'd be there with all the amateurs, and there's no point in going and wasting a whole bunch of energy in a bottleneck. So I was just going to wait, and so I let all the pros go, and then I passed most of them back when they all went the wrong way and rode up Backdoor, which I can't ride up anymore. So I rode around it, which is the way the course went, and then I got to the top of that, and that's when I started trail riding. I just went trail riding until I started realizing I was going to get cramps in about an hour, really bad.
So last night I was sitting there trying to rewatch some of the live stuff, and they're filming this guy way off in the distance. The announcer's got no idea who it is because you're not all, distinctively marked like a couple of guys, right at the top. So they see this bike, and they're following it for a long time. And he's just riding chill across the desert, And I'm like, I spotted, though. I know that's you. And it's funny.
You spotted the beer belly. It was the beer belly?
You're doing all the right things and everything. And then they're like, yeah, now look at this guy. He's even got a license plate on that bike. I wonder who he is. He might have rode here or something. That's what the announcer said. And that was just a crack up. And you ride by, and I know you're riding chill because I've seen you ride angry across the desert. Okay, like when somebody blows a posting position at one of our schools or whatever.
Oh.
or something. So I know how much faster you are than that, and you're just kind of riding chill. But I thought that was pretty cool, and we're all proud of you. And I know what you ought to tell people. You were telling me you were pretty excited and thrilled about how the bike ran and everything performed, and I don't think you're ready to go back to carburetor.
No. Oh no, I never want to ride another carbureted bike ever.
So yeah, that's something you could drive home. But no.
You were
proud to be there and be part of it.
Oh, I appreciate the support. I kind of appreciate the challenge. I don't know what you were thinking because you're spirit monkey. Is that what you are? Spirit monkey.
Yeah, that's close enough.
Yeah, what do they call that?
Spiritual advisor.
Spiritual advisor. Yeah.
Role model.
Yeah.
No. Life coach and spiritual advisor.
Okay, got that.
Yeah, that's
so
that's going to be on my.
To kind of push me. I mean, I was going to probably try to ride that event whether I was riding your bike or not. But your bike made it a lot sweeter. And in reality, okay, so a lot of that course was stuff that, you know, there were trails that I made. I mean, like, I was the first person to ride them, and we used them over the course of the 6 years that we did King of the Motos. And so I think for Justin, it was, you know, just it's overwhelming. You cannot discount how much work that guy did in his first year just to get that thing restarted. So when you know, it was really familiar with a lot of it, and when I finally got the course map, and I downloaded it because I saw a picture of the course, like, it was in my rider packet, and it wasn't supposed to be before the event, but I did see the course, and I slid it back in there. I didn't look at it that close, but just by looking at it, I already knew kind of where, basically, the general layout, where it was going to go. And but when I finally got the track logs and I got them downloaded into my GPS, I took them and I downloaded them and put them on my computer, and I did some of this Mapman stuff. You know, you may have heard about that from Dakar. You know, there's like Mapman things that Mapman do. So I did that for myself, and I went and looked at it, and I'm like, holy crap, he's really going to do this on the bronze lap. Like, he's using some of these trails that are kind of, I don't know. You know, it was maybe I wouldn't have done it on a bronze lap, but he did it, and so my whole strategy changed. And, you know, because I came back and I said I'm not going to finish before, like, the 3-hour cutoff or whatever. You know, in fact, when we were prepping before I put the thing in there, I said I'm not going to need a gas can at the pit because I'm not going to go out a second time. I just knew based on time that I wasn't a good enough rider.
You were pretty right on with what you estimated the time to ride all that was, but
yeah,
hard to imagine.
Yeah, so we, you know, so anyways, all of a sudden I was like, well, maybe I'll make it, you know, and so I ended up putting some extra gas in the truck, you know, so we'd have it, but there's 3 sections on the backside of the end of the course there that I've never ever, I want to call it cleaned those sections of trail. I've always had to struggle a little bit to get up there, but on your bike, on that tire and that setup and stuff, I cleaned. It's the first 3 times I cleaned them, and I was pretty amazed that how far the bikes have come. You know, and I was always using the KTM 200 before to set it, you know, to get the course set up, and I never felt that, like, that bike lacked power, but having just that little bit of extra torque at the lower RPM, and, you know, the ability to you know, get traction, you know, maybe in a higher gear without having to use so much revs. I rode right up those 3 sections, and actually, it's probably good I did, because I'd probably still be out there had I not.
Well, I think next year, Jimmy, and I'll be glad I'll sponsor you again, but next year you ought to ride there and ride the event.
Next year I'm going to be an announcer.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna do
right,
I'm
to and from the event, though. That's Jimmy stuff.
I figured, like, at the level I'm at now, I probably should just, like, you know, help Ricky Johnson and Dave Brocious announce the event, because I know I know the ins and outs of the event. They know the riders, and Ricky knows a lot of stuff. So, but they. I'll try to get that gig next year, and then that way I can make an excuse for not having to ride it again. Because I really do not like racing anymore. I want to stop when I want to stop.
Another trail ride.
Well, it was, once I got to the top of the hill, it was a trail ride, but man, it's so hard to, like, you know, stop and take your helmet off and sit underneath the rock while all these other racers are riding by you, looking at you, asking if something's wrong. It kind of.
What was it? The guy pitted next to us said you were like. He says, "Yeah, I came up on Jimmy's, like, naked on a rock doing downward dog stretches or something." What was that about?
Yeah, no, I wasn't totally naked, but I was about ready to get there. Hey, you know, another race I did a race over in Kauai. I did the Hare and Hound in Kauai, and I did get pretty much naked, and I almost overalled the event. So, I mean, if you've got an event that's stinking hard, that you can, you know, take your helmet and clothes off, you know, gear off during the race and still do pretty good, that's an extreme enduro, buddy.
I want to see you do that Catalina thing. I know we talked about it, but you ought to do that just for nostalgia.
No, there's no nostalgia in me. I don't want to ride old bikes. I don't want to. Well, unless it's a Mako Sand Spider. I want to ride a Mako Sand Spider right now. I got some kind of crazy idea. So if you own a Mako Sand Spider and you want Jimmy to ride it, I'll do that maybe at Catalina, but
I'm actually my cousin. He has some old bike like that, like put away in a crate, and I'll call him. And might be eating your words right now.
Okay. Well, I'll ride it for a little while, but not very long. I mean, it was just that was So when I'm talking about, hey Logan, have you ever ridden the Husaberg 570?
No.
Ever? Nope. You want to or don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guess what? You're not gonna, because that's only that's a man's bike. And since it has electric start, I can't say, well, you can't ride it unless you can start it, because all it takes is pushing a button. You're gonna have to earn that honor. So.
Pick it up.
Yeah, no, it is kind of hard to pick up. The center of gravity on that bike's a little bit jacked up, but it sure does work good. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of other bikes with that kind of power, if you know what I mean. I mean, that thing will shred knobs off the back of a tire like it's nobody's business. You've seen it, yeah. What? You didn't ride it, did you? Did you take it out? Like when I was gone? Is that why there's the burnout marks in front of the house? No, it is funny. So. Okay, George, anything else?
Okay, I'm getting off the line because this has probably cost you $2 now in 9 cents a minute. So
Yeah.
I gotta get off the line.
I got to figure out why this isn't.
Good, and I hope you had a good time.
Hey, everything else worked technically perfect tonight except for what you're involved with. Did you realize that?
I know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, no.
We'll see out here this weekend. You can ride you can check the setup on your awesome race bike. I left it alone. It's actually.
There you go.
I may do a little YouTube video or something like that on the bike specifically, just so guys can see it with all the parts that I put on it, the few parts that I put on it, and your awesome graphics.
Yeah, well, that. I mean, you saw it. I'm sure that. So you bring my bike through there really unscathed. I'll say that. It was unscathed, and then I get home with my 500, I pressure washed it, falls over and pokes a hole through the ignition cover, and it's leaking oil all over the driveway.
It's all about the operator error, George.
It is. It absolutely is. That's so true. Okay,
So,
Jimmy.
cool.
Talk to you later.
Hey, thanks a lot, George. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
So that was my sponsor, George, spelled Jorge, and also a regular here on Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. I don't know. Actually, I got to figure out what's going on next week. I don't know my schedule yet. So yeah, no, don't even think about riding that Husaberg, Logan. It's a little bit away, a little bit out of your skill level, I think. Justin paid Jimmy a lot of respect during the live feed when it was Ricky Johnson announcing. I saw it in his eyes. I was that guy once, like, what am I doing? How did I get here? It's and we were laughing because the same people that came up and just would always give me an earful about how I could do it better and here's what you should do and all this other stuff. And having been a race promoter from, promoting mini bike races all the way to, world-class events like King of the Motos, I'm going to tell you, any promoters out there listening to this, please take this advice. So when somebody comes and tells you what they're going to do, just be nice. And it's really hard for me to be nice because I usually want to tell them what I think, but I learned better of that as I've become older. You just shake and nod your head. And when they're all done telling you how to make it better, you just look them straight in the eyes and you go, that's such a good idea. You should do it at your event. And then you watch them roll their eyes back in their head. So, yeah. Okay. What are you laughing at? What do we?
George, new
Hey,
comment.
this is my finisher placky thingy that I got, by the way, from King of the Motos. Yeah, I hate talking to racers, so myself included. So we're done with that. Thanks for liking the graphics. Yeah, he's trying to sell his bike right now.
Yeah.
On the forum to all you people. That bike, I would buy it right now in a second. Actually, I was at Three Brothers the other day. I was picking up a bike for a friend. I almost bought a 19, and it's funny because I've talked so highly of the 20, and I'm like, this bike's fine, it's good. I was like, hey, you can take a nearly stock one and go ride it and finish King of the Motos. Like, what's wrong with that bike? And I mean, evidently that beats the crap out of bikes. So, Maybe I'll buy George's night. I can talk him out of that 19, and then he'll go buy a 20. Then he has brand new. We have matching graphics. Will look kind of cool when I let him go riding with me, my sponsor guy. So anyhow, okay. I think that's it. We're gonna hang up on the. Do we have any? Does anybody else want to try to call in and see if this thing works? What broke on this thing, Gabe?
Is it? Are you moving the wrong one?
No, this is the right one. It's right down the line from that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, could have been. Somebody might have unplugged something or something over here. I try not to touch any of this stuff because all I do is screw it up. But one of these days we'll be professional show. Right? Hey, okay. I want to thank everybody for listening in. I want to thank Logan. Logan, what were your else you're going to talk about tonight?
I don't know.
Besides the sounds of silence? Do you have some questions?
No.
No? No. When are we riding? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah? When? No, that's a time. Like, you're going to ride this weekend at my school.
Yeah.
Right? Or are we going to fire you?
I'll come.
You'll come. Okay, good. So you're going to make those balance board things
Yeah.
by the school, by the time the school comes out.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I got the tools over here. You can just come over after school, fix those things up. So then we need to go we need to go rip that 125 around. I'll take my YZ out. I'll show you how to twist that thing. That's what 125s are for. But again, thanks everybody for listening. Thank you to Kate's. Thank you to DDC. Thanks to Climb for supporting us literally from day one with dirt bike tests. We hope to have a whole bunch of new sponsors and companies coming in here soon. This is the question, the show where we answer 9 out of 10 questions correctly about dirt bikes and dirt bike related products. Thanks, Gabe, for helping us out again as usual. Mojave Bob for sitting in the back in the cornfield over there, giving us ridiculous questions. Okay, we will see you hopefully next Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Or out on the trail. Cheers, guys. You got to give them a thumbs up, man.